We use the word so easily. Burnout, it sounds clinical, almost dignified. It suggests we have given so much, we have been emptied by the world. But what if that's not the whole story? What if the exhaustion you feel isn't a sign that you've been working too hard, but that you've been thinking too little? What if it's not about the volume of your effort, but the disorder of it? We call it burnout when our energy is gone, but we rarely ask where the energy was spent. Was it spent on the one thing that truly matters, or was it leaked in 100 tiny, unconscious ways? A scroll through a feed that leaves you feeling hollow, a conversation that drains you for no reward, an hour lost to worrying about a problem you're not yet solving, saying yes to a request that deserved a no. This isn't burnout, this is a slow bleed, this is the cost of a weak discipline. Discipline is not a punishment. It is not about deprivation, it is the architecture of your energy. It is the conscious daily decision to build walls around your attention so your focus doesn't evaporate into the thin air of everyone else's demands. A weak discipline means your boundaries are porous. Your yes has no integrity. Your time is not your own, and your energy, your precious finite energy, seeps out onto the floor until you're left standing in a puddle of your own exhaustion, wondering what happened. The world will happily take everything you are willing to give it. It has an endless appetite for your distraction, your compliance, your unfocused hours. To say this is burnout is to blame the fire for consuming the fuel you willingly threw into it. The antidote is not necessarily to do less. It is to do what matters with more ferocious protection. It is the discipline of a single, clear priority. The discipline of a protected morning. The discipline of turning off the notifications that fragment your soul. The discipline of ending your day before you are utterly empty. It is the courage to be bored, because in that boredom, your own thoughts can finally find you again. This is not about pushing harder. It is about thinking more clearly. It's about building a structure so strong that your energy can't leak out and can only be channeled into what you have decided is worthy of your life. Stop calling it burn-out. We have been sold a narrative about burnout that, while partially true, is dangerously incomplete. We are told it is the inevitable result of overwork, of giving too much, of the world's demands finally exceeding our capacity. This framing casts us as the victim, noble, perhaps, but ultimately passive. Our energy has been taken from us, but this perspective ignores a more uncomfortable and empowering truth. Our energy is not just taken, it is also given away, often carelessly, and without our conscious consent. The term burnout focuses on the empty tank, but it rarely prompts us to look for the leaks in the fuel line. The exhaustion you feel is frequently less about the sheer volume of productive work, and more about the chaotic, unconscious dispersal of your mental and emotional resources. This is the slow bleed. It is the energy expended on the 20-minute scroll that leaves you feeling agitated and comparing your life to others. It is the psychic drain of the meeting that should have been an email, the conversation that circles a problem without moving toward a solution, the lingering resentment from a yes you gave when your soul screamed no. This is not the cost of achievement, it is the cost of indiscretion. It is the tax you pay for a weak discipline over your own attention. When your discipline is weak, your boundaries become porous. Every notification is an interruption you allow. Every trivial request is a priority you accept. Every anxiety is a loop you choose to entertain. Your focus, which should be a laser, becomes a diffused light bulb, illuminating nothing with intensity and burning out its filament, trying to light up everything at once. You are not being emptied by a single, focused effort. You are being drained by 1,000 tiny cuts of distraction and misaligned obligation. Calling this burnout is like blaming a flood on the rain, while ignoring the fact that you never installed a roof or gutters. The rain of modern life, the demands, the information, the noise, is a constant. The structure you build to channel it, or the lack thereof, is what determines whether you are nourished by the water or drowned by it. The feeling of exhaustion is not the problem, it is the symptom. The problem is the lack of a disciplined structure to protect your inner resources from the relentless weather of the world. We often associate discipline with restriction, with the grim, joyless act of saying no. We picture a stern taskmaster denying life's pleasures. This is a profound misunderstanding that keeps us trapped in cycles of exhaustion. True discipline is not a jailer, it is an architect. It is not about building walls to imprison yourself, but about constructing a structure, a beautiful, functional, and personalized architecture for your energy and attention. Without this architecture, your potential is like a priceless resource left out in the open rain, evaporating and washing away. A weak discipline means you are living in a cognitive and emotional house with no walls, where every passing demand, every gust of distraction, and every trivial interruption blows through you unimpeded. You are at the mercy of the elements. The architect's discipline, however, is a creative and empowering force. It is the conscious design of your days and your mind. It asks the fundamental question, what do I want to build here? And then deliberately erects the structures to make that possible. This architecture includes the load, bearing walls of your non-negotiable priorities, the 2 hours of deep work you protect as sacred. It includes the windows you choose to open, the specific sources of information that enlighten you, and the ones you keep closed, the news cycles and feeds that only breed anxiety. It features a strong door with a reliable lock, your ability to say no. With conviction, not as an act of rejection, but as an act of preservation for what happens inside the house. This structure is not meant to isolate you from the world, but to allow you to engage with it from a place of strength and choice, rather than weakness and reaction. When your energy has a designated home, it doesn't leak out. It accumulates. It becomes a reservoir you can draw from intentionally, rather than a puddle on the floor you keep slipping on. Discipline, therefore, is the ultimate act of self-care. It is the difference between living in a flimsy tent in a storm and inhabiting a well-designed, sturdy home. One leaves you perpetually battered and exposed. The other provides the shelter and stability from which you can venture out to do great work, knowing you have a sanctuary to return to. A life without strong discipline is a life with porous boundaries. This porosity is the primary mechanism of the energy drain we so often mislabel as burnout. When your boundaries are weak, they function less like the sturdy walls of a sanctuary and more like a permeable membrane. Everything passes through: the urgent but unimportant request from a colleague, the emotional drama of a distant acquaintance, the latest cultural outrage engineered by an algorithm to capture your attention, the guilt trip from a family member. You have no filter, no gatekeeper, no mechanism for discerning what deserves entry into the sacred space of your focus, and what should be politely, but firmly, turned away. This state of permeability means your inner world is no longer your own. It becomes a public square, a thoroughfare for other people's agendas and the world's chaos. Your yes loses its power because it is given not from a place of intentional choice, but from a place of default compliance. You say yes to the extra project because you haven't defined the clear lines around your current priorities. You say yes to the draining social obligation because you lack the script to articulate a graceful no. You say yes to another hour of mindless scrolling because you haven't instituted a curfew for your own attention. Each of these unguarded yeses is a tiny puncture wound. Individually, they seem insignificant, but collectively, they create a slow, constant hemorrhage of your time, your mental clarity, and your emotional resilience. Your energy does not vanish in one catastrophic explosion. It seeps out, drop by drop, through these countless, invisible breaches in your personal boundaries. You are left feeling perpetually depleted, not because one thing is taking so much, but because everything is taking a little. The world has an infinite appetite for your resources, and a porous boundary is an open invitation for it to feast. The feeling of exhaustion, then, is not the cause of your problem. It is the logical and inevitable effect of living in a state of unprotected openness, where you have voluntarily surrendered your sovereignty and allowed your most precious internal resources to be plundered by every passing demand. The conventional wisdom for treating burnout is to prescribe less, fewer hours, lighter workloads, more vacations. While rest is essential, this approach often misses the mark because it misdiagnoses the disease. The core issue is not necessarily the quantity of the work, but its quality and intentionality. The antidote to the exhaustion of a weak discipline is not necessarily to do less, but to do what matters with more ferocious protection. This is a shift from being a passive participant in your own depletion to becoming an active, even aggressive, guardian of your focus. Ferocious protection means moving beyond vague intentions and implementing a strategic defense of your energy. It is the conscious, deliberate creation of a fortress around your priorities. This looks like defining, with crystal clarity, the one or two things that constitute meaningful progress each day and then building moats around the time required to accomplish them. It means scheduling your deep work sessions and treating those appointments with the same unbreakable commitment you would a meeting with your most important client, because you are your most important client. It involves the ruthless pruning of distractions, not as a passive act of avoidance, but as an active campaign of elimination. This might mean deleting apps from your phone, installing website blockers during work hours, or creating a physical environment that signals to your brain and to others that you are not available for interruption. This protection is ferocious because it is unwavering and preemptive. It does not wait for the distraction to arise. It anticipates and neutralizes it. It understands that a single, uninterrupted hour of profound focus is more valuable and less draining than 8 hours of fragmented, reactive busyness. You are not reducing the total output of energy. You are channeling it with precision, ensuring that every unit of effort expended is directed toward a target you have consciously chosen, rather than being scattered against a wall of distractions. This focused effort is paradoxically less exhausting than the diffuse anxiety of constant context switching. By protecting what matters, you are not building a life of less. You are building a life of more impact, more satisfaction, and more sustainable energy, because your efforts are aligned with a purpose that fuels rather than drains you. The ultimate goal of building this strong, disciplined structure for your life is not merely to manage your energy better from week to week. It is to achieve a state of being where your life no longer requires recovery from itself. So many of us live in a cyclical trap. We endure the draining chaos of our undisciplined days, fueled by caffeine and anxiety, only to crash on the weekend or on a vacation that is spent desperately trying to recuperate from the very life we have built. We return from these breaks not truly restored, but merely patched up enough to re-enter the fray and repeat the cycle. This is the hallmark of a system in fundamental conflict with itself. A life that requires constant recovery is a life built on a flawed design. The aim of fierce discipline is to redesign the system from the ground up. It is to create a daily existence that is inherently sustainable, fulfilling, and energizing. Imagine a workday that ends not with you being poured out onto the floor, but with a sense of serene completion. Imagine your evenings not as a numb escape from the day, but as a rich, engaged part of your life. This is not a fantasy. It is the direct result of a day lived with intention, where your energy was channeled into meaningful work, and your boundaries protected you from the parasitic drains of distraction and unimportant demands. In this state, rest is no longer an emergency medical procedure for the soul. It becomes a deepening, a luxurious expansion of an already full life, rather than a desperate attempt to fill an empty one. Your weekends transform from trauma recovery units into workshops for creativity, connection, and joy. You stop living for the escape and start thriving in the main event. This is the profound shift from a life of oscillating between exhaustion and recovery to a life of sustained, purposeful engagement. The discipline to protect your focus and channel your energy is not a punishment you endure. It is the master key that unlocks a life so well designed and authentically yours that the very concept of burnout becomes obsolete. You are not building a better routine. You are building a better reality, one where your daily existence is the sanctuary, not the storm you need shelter from.